Hello everyone, I am Gwen and today I wanted to go over all of the books that I read in August. So the first book I read this month is normally the first book I read of the year, basically every year. It's my favorite book of all time. I have an entire collection of them, and that is Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. For those unfamiliar with the story, this is the story of a horse named Black Beauty. Well, he goes by many different names throughout the book, but it is a classic told from his perspective. So this basically follows Black Beauty from foalhood in his first home all the way through all sorts of different homes from all walks of life, good and bad, until he's old and in his final home. This book was written as a commentary on the way that the Victorian people treated their animals, primarily horses and beasts of burden, though it does touch a little bit on things like clipping dog ears and docking their tails and that sort of thing. And while this story by no means started the animal welfare kind of movement, it's definitely the story that kind of pushed it into the forefront of public favor and really got it the legs it needed. It's full of happy moments when he's at a wonderful home and by loved people with friends that will make you smile and feel warm. And it's got moments of sadness where he's not in a great home or he's having to say goodbye, and it's showing the darker underbellies of what it was like to be a beast of burden in Victorian England. But anyway, my favorite book of all time, 5 stars as usual, and a good way to start off the month. Next is Volume 2 of Mad K by Ryo Suzuri. I pre-ordered this. I loved the first volume so much, and I read this the second it came in. This is centered around Makoto, who has a fetish of like voring, I think is the right term. Basically where he wants to eat people, and he makes a deal with the demon that he will be able to kind of live out his fantasy with the demon, and in exchange that demon gets his soul. And then it's just kind of his journey in hell and kind of figuring out his place and achieving goals that he's set now that he's there. I don't want to give away too much, but I love this. You do not need to be into vor. I'm not. If you are, then it's a great little treat for you, but I would definitely put this more in a like body horror genre for me. This is by Sublime, so it does focus around gay characters, but I would definitely not put this as like a gay romance. I would kind of put it in the same vein as if anyone read Killing Stalking, where it's centered around gay characters, but it's not meant to depict like a good healthy relationship or a romance. It's a horror at its core. The art is absolutely lovely and definitely some of my favorite art in manga right now, and currently my favorite series that's ongoing, even though we're only 2 volumes in. I can't wait to read more, and they need to come out faster. Also 5 stars, by the way, in case you couldn't guess. Next was a good old nostalgia read, and that is Warriors Into the Wild by Erin Hunter. I don't remember what like brought it to my mind again, but I just had such a strong like need to reread the Warrior series. And as you can see, you can't see all of them, but I bought all of the box sets. This is about a pet cat named Rusty who is out wandering in the forest outside his home, and he runs into wild forest cats and learns that there are clans of cats that live in the forest, and they take care of themselves. They live in a group. They train to become warriors to defend their clans and take care of their elders and all of that. And Rusty finds he's just not happy with his life with the 2 legs, as they call humans, and he ends up being able to join the clan as an apprentice and train to become a warrior in these clans. Is this like the best like upper middle grade series of all time? No, but it holds such a nostalgic place in my heart. Realistically, this is probably like a 3-star read, and I will enjoy the series, but it's not objectively the best. but because of my love for it and the nostalgia and the warm fuzzy feelings I get when I'm reading this series, I gave it a 4. Plus, I know a lot of people don't like the cover upgrades. This is what they looked like when I was a wee little Gwen reading these as they were first coming out, which they're lovely. I like them, but I do really love like this illustrative style for them. Plus, I think we can all agree, I'll put a photo I put up on Instagram if you want to follow me over there, of all of these spines, but they all kind of make like one big picture and they're so beautiful. Like I love these new cover designs so much. All right, next was a classic reread that is Lord of the Flies by William Golding. This was one of those books that I think we've probably all had to read them in high school. If you are currently in high school and haven't read it yet, just wait. This was one of those that when I was reading it in high school, I couldn't help but think like, you know, if I wasn't reading this in a school setting, I might enjoy it. So now that I'm older and I've more or less forgotten most of the story and it's not really fresh in my mind, I saw this at the library sale. So I picked it up because I wanted to read it and see if I would enjoy it without having to dissect every word of it. And unfortunately, it was only a 3-star read, but considering it would have been like a 1-star if I was reading this in high school when I was having to read it, that's an improvement. If you are not aware of what Lord of the Flies is about, it is set I believe World War II, but a plane carrying a bunch of schoolboys goes down on an uninhabited island, and it's basically them trying to survive until help comes, and drama and violence unfold. So I can't really say that I'd like recommend it, but I probably don't have to, because at least if you go to school in America, I don't know if this is like required reading if you're in Europe or anything or anywhere else, but at least if you're in America, you will have read this book at some point in your life. All right, next I picked up a library book, and that was Last Chance to See by Douglas Adams, the same Douglas Adams who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So this is a nonfiction book about Douglas Adams going on adventures around the world with BBC wildlife journalists and recorders and photographers and stuff to capture some of these endangered animals that people at this time are concerned that this may be our last chance to see them and document them before they've gone extinct in the wild. And for some of these animals, it's extinct, period. I'll say if you enjoy the writing and humor of Hitchhiker's Guide to a Galaxy, you will probably enjoy this. It's definitely written in the exact same style. He's very aware and equally confused of why he, as a science fiction author, was chosen to go on this journey. But he's very funny about it. And there's some commentary on the other cultures that they kind of go to see that if it were written today, I would think I would hope that he probably would have worded things a little differently. It was basically just like complaining that things were different from England while being very aware of the fact that he's only complaining that these other cultures are different from England and there's really no reason for them to be the same as England. But I thought it would be a mixture of probably fun and depressing to look at the animals that they went through in this book, see if they mentioned it, where their populations were at the time this was released, which I think was in like the late 80s. So are we doing good or not with their populations, basically? So the first animal they covered was the aye. They weren't really clear. They didn't mention how many were around at the time of the book being like written and released. And online, it's very difficult to pinpoint how many there are when I try to look, and I try to focus on respected sources, and it seemed to range. Some sites said that there was like a couple hundred, and some sites said there was like 1,000 to 10,000, and neither of them would ever mention like, is this in the wild, is this worldwide including captivity, or anything like that. So basically the only thing that was consistent was that the population is declining. But as far as I can tell, there's anywhere from 100 to 10,000 aye-ayes left in the world. The next animal they covered was the Komodo dragon, and At the time of this book being published, it was sitting at a population of about 5,000 in the wild, and today it's sitting at a population of about 5,000 to 6,000. In the book, they mentioned that they kind of always sat at that population. That just appears to be about the population of the Komodo dragons that the island can efficiently support. So sounds like they're holding steady. The northern white rhino is probably the most depressing. At the time of writing this book, there were 22 left in the world, and the author was excited because they had brought back the southern white rhino from a population of like 15 or something. So he was very much like it's not too late. If we like really get on this, we can do it. Unfortunately, we're down to 2 female northern white rhinos. So the next animal they covered is the silverback mountain gorilla. So this, I believe, I forgot to write it down, but I'm pretty sure they said there was about 1,000 in the wild when they wrote the book. These are currently at about 880 and declining. So we're not too late on them yet, but we're not doing well. The next is a bit of a success story. There is the kakapo parrot. At the time of this book, they only had about 40 left in existence. They kind of herded them. They were kind of starting the project of herding them to like a smaller island so they could actually find each other and mate and be protected. And as of today, there are currently 200 kakapos. So we are bringing them back, and hopefully things continue to go well, and we will bring them back from the verge of extinction. Next was the Rodriguez fruit bat. There were only a few hundred left when the book was written, and today there is about 20,000 of them. They are facing habitat issues, but that's definitely a big boom in population. Next was the Yangtze river dolphin, and there were about 200 left in the book, and the town that was on the Yangtze River was just opening and building a conservancy area for them, and that seems to be working because there are currently about 500 to 1,800 of these dolphins. So we are bringing them back. So those were the main animals they covered. I just thought it would be fun to see how we're doing. It sounds like we're doing well in some and not great in others. At least most of them are still around. So given it's been about 40 years since that book came out, I will take it. So next I read the light novel Failure Frame. I became the strongest and annihilated everything with low-level spells. This was written by Kaoru Shinozaki and illustrated by KWKM. This is an isekai about a class of kids who get transported to another world by a goddess, and it's the typical story of you're chosen and there's like a demon king coming to attack our kingdom, and we need you to save us. Unfortunately for Memori Touka, he is not a very strong hero and got very low-level spells that the goddess says basically he's useless. So she sends him to a dungeon/ruin where he's basically supposed to die, but he's decided that he's going to get revenge on the goddess, and the goddess tells him like, oh, well, if you make it up, you can be a hero, with the knowledge that he's not supposed to be able to actually get through this. I won't spoil like what the powers are or anything or how he's going about doing stuff, but it was okay. He seems a little overpowered to me, like it's One Punch Man kind of strength, but without the kind of comedy and self-awareness that One Punch Man had. Plus, when we're introduced to this character, let me read you like the second sentence of how they described her. A girl stood bathing, completely naked, knee-deep in the river. The sun shone down on her through the trees, making her silken, milky white skin sparkle. She was thin, but not too thin, and her long, white blonde hair was damp and clung to her round, voluptuous breasts. She gently pulled it back and tucked it behind her ear. So, I expected this to have, the normal level of sexualizing the female characters, especially from the cover, and I wasn't sure on the gender of the author, but probably safe to say it's a dude. So I gave this 3 stars because it was fine. Toward the end, he meets a little like slime friend and it's adorable, but I don't know if it's enough to make me want to continue on this series. I'll probably put it away for now, and if I just find myself like suddenly thinking about it and wanting to continue, I'll pick up the next volume. But right now there's just more interesting things that I want to get around to. All right, next I got my Kickstarter reward from Good Girls Don't Make History. This is by Elizabeth Kiner and Keith Allwell, Kara Coyle, Michaela Dawn, and Mary Sanchi. I'm probably butchering some of those names, I'm sorry. But this is a comic, and it's basically about beautiful art, by the way. I love the art. But it's basically about the suffrage movement and women getting the right to vote. And it talks about key figures and moments. Like I learned my birthday, I think, fell on the first time a woman was allowed into the White House to yell at the president about women's rights. So that's pretty cool. My only critique is also kind of a praise. So I do appreciate that this includes the women of color and the Black women who were also in that fight and the struggles they faced, even from their white suffragette counterparts who they wanted the white vote, but they didn't want the vote for Black women. So obviously the original suffragette movement wasn't exactly inclusive, and it talked about the Black women who were fighting for their rights as well. The part where the criticism comes in is while it called a lot of attention to that problem, it also kind of fell into the problem of like 90% of this book is about the white women who were in that suffragette movement. And obviously they were important moments, but I don't know if it could have been a little longer and just fit more moments of Black women fighting for their rights as well, or gone a little more in depth or something, but it just felt like it was very much calling attention to that problem, but then also still not really focusing as much on the Black women at the time. So this was still good. I do still recommend it, and it told a lot of stories that I had no idea we never learned about in school. I think this is definitely, this shouldn't be like your be-all, end-all education on the suffragette movement, but if you want to learn or at least have your attention called to certain moments and certain people that you can go then learn about more and more in depth, then this is definitely great. But I ended up giving this 4 stars because overall I do think it was done well and I really did enjoy it. I just wish there was just a little more focus on the BIPOC people and their fight for the vote within this movement as well. And lastly, I read another comic. This is a bind-up of all of the volumes that had come out. This is Nettle of the Forgotten Spirits. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. This is by Vera Greentea and Laura Mueller. And this is about Nettle, who is a spirit on Dia de los Muertos. And she is a forgotten spirit and is coming through trying to find someone who can remember her and kind of force people to remember her because she doesn't want to die that final death. The art is absolutely lovely. It's very illustrative and it's got a ton of movement to it. The story didn't really hold my attention as much. Honestly, I think it's just because it's a very short story and I tend to not do as well, especially with short comics, because we don't get a ton of time with the characters in the story. So I feel like that's probably more a me thing. But I did enjoy it. It was a cute story with beautiful art. I gave this a 3.75 probably. It just wasn't quite a 4-star, but 3 stars definitely too low. I did enjoy it. I think it's just my own personal preference of short comics I just have a hard time connecting to. So those are the books that I read in August. Let me know if you have read any of these, if you want to read any of these, and what was your favorite book that you read in August. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Bye!